Chapter 1. The message on Penny's phone had read, "Nana Lem's been taken to St. Agnes's Hospital. She's asked for you. It's critical. Come quickly." Of course, Penny had to go. Firstly, there was that word, critical. Secondly, Nana Lem, her last surviving and definitely favourite grandparent, had asked for her. Thirdly, the message had come from Penny's cousin Izzy. This was Izzy, who rarely communicated with Penny beyond sending homemade birthday and Christmas cards, and who surely wouldn't have broken that routine for anything other than an important reason. Fourthly, given that Penny's job at a London hotel had recently come to a crashing end, for reasons she did not want to go into, she was very much at a loose end. All in all, it was a positive relief to be able to jump on a train at Liverpool Street Station, and a little over an hour later to be on the streets of Ipswich in the rural East Anglian county of Suffolk. St. Agnes's was a small hospital on the edge of town, little more than a large house. It barely seemed like a hospital at all, and it struck Penny that it was an odd place to take someone in a critical condition. The nurse took Penny through to a day room with huge supportive armchairs and a wide window that overlooked the shining River Orwell. Nana Lem sat in an armchair inspecting a grape that she held between thumb and forefinger. Her left foot was in a support boot and raised on a cushion. She had a knitted blanket over her legs. "What do you think of that, eh?" she asked, holding out the grape. "It's huge. No grape should be that big. They weren't that big in my day. It's not natural." This did not appear to be a woman in a critical condition. A critical mood, perhaps, but nothing more. "Morning, Nana Lem," said Penny, and bent to kiss her. "I came as soon as I could." "Oh, you shouldn't make a fuss over me," replied the old woman. Nana Lem was well into her 80s and was of that breed of women that people tended to refer to as a tough old bird. She'd lived her life on her feet, carrying bags of groceries up the hill to her house, peeling spuds at the kitchen sink, working behind the counter of the cosy craft shop. Time might have weathered her leathery face, and her hair might have turned to a cloud of wispy white, but Nana Lem had always been a solid and dependable fixture in Penny's life, and hospitalisation didn't seem to have changed that. As Penny sat, Nana Lem offered her the bowl from her lap. "A surprisingly large grape?" No, thank you. How are you?" "Very well, thank you. Well, obviously not very, but mostly, well..." And she eventually told Penny what had happened, which boiled down to the age-old truth that people above a certain age should not climb onto chairs to clean cobwebs from the ceiling, or indeed for any other purpose. "It's a sprain, actually," she said, tilting her injured foot. "Or a bruised bone, something like that. Not very serious." "But you're in hospital," Penny pointed out. "Ah, that's on account of me getting the white pills and the grey pills mixed up." "Oh?" "Should have been only taking one grey pill a day, 4 of the white and 1 of the grey for the pain in my leg. Got all that the wrong way round, and the grey ones made me feel very nice. And one thing's led to another, and the doctors tell me I got opioid use disorder." "Oh my," Penny exclaimed, which seemed to be the mildest possible response to the revelation that her Nana was a drug addict. "They got me in here for at least a fortnight while I come down, or go cold turkey or something. And they got me on some orange pills now, which are just as nice." They fell to chatting about everything and nothing. Uncle Harold's knee replacement, what Cousin Stephen's youngest had been arrested for, how Cousin Deborah had got herself a new place after the divorce, and how she might or might not be living in sin with Gordon from the Chippy. "And how's London?" asked Nana Lem. "It's London. I hear you're on a sabbatical." Penny looked at her sharply and then realised. "Did Mum tell you that?" she asked. It was the lie Penny had told her own mother, who was half a country away in Nottingham. "I assume that means you lost your job." Penny chose neither to confirm nor to deny. She didn't need to. "It's temporary," she said. "Good." "Good?" Nana Lem nodded emphatically. "You know I have the shop." "Still?" asked Penny. Nana Lem's sewing shop, Cosy Crafts, was situated in the small market town of Framlingham, on the far side of Woodbridge and deep in rolling Suffolk farmland. "I thought Izzy had taken that over." Nana Lem scoffed loudly. "I took her on to mind the counter and help me with some of the alterations work. You know our Izzy, not got the sense she was born with and can no more run a shop than a frog can drive a tractor." "Oh," said Penny, for want of anything sensible to add. "I'm sorry to hear that." She had to admit that this sounded exactly like the Izzy Penny remembered from her childhood. Izzy who had at various times in her youth set out to capture the mythical black dog of Bungay single-handedly, navigate a pedalo to New Zealand, and prove that she could train a squirrel to perform circus tricks. Nana Lem reached forward, with some difficulty, and clasped Penny's hand. "Which is why I want you to take over while I'm in here." "Excuse me?" "I would like you to take over Cosy Crafts." Penny was stunned. This was not what she had envisaged for today. But what had she envisaged? Flying across the country to attend the bedside of a dying grandma? Tenderness and declarations of love? Muttered supportive comments for the other family members gathered round? This was, well, obviously, this situation was better. Nana Lem wasn't dying, but take over a shop? I know nothing about retail. "You worked in that hotel for the best part of 5 years. "That's hospitality." "Do you know how to deal with customers?" "Yes." "Can you keep a place neat and tidy?" "Of course." "Can you handle money and invoices and know what to do with threatening letters that come in brown envelopes with little windows in them?" "Yes." "There you go, then," announced the old woman triumphantly. "I can't actually sew," Penny pointed out. "And that's what Izzy's for. She does the work, you run things. You can even use a flat above the shop, since the Rose won't allow you to stay in my place at Miller Fields. But it's only going to be for a short while. I did ask you to come, and you came." "I did," Penny admitted. And that, it seemed, was that. Chapter 2. 3 hours later, Penny stood in Framlingham Marketplace and turned slowly around. She was stiff from a lengthy bus journey. London to Ipswich had been a straight and speedy trip by train, fields and trains whizzing smoothly by. The only annoyance, the man sharing her table and insisting on taking up most of it with his laptop. From Ipswich to Framlingham had been slow and winding. The bus stuck for 15 minutes behind a pair of horses that had escaped from a field. Public transport in Suffolk required patience and a willingness to accept that rural bus services weren't quite the same as London ones. It had been many years since she had last stood here. Her mum's side of the family had moved north years before, and it was only the occasional visit to see Nana Lem or to attend the wedding of an old school friend that had brought her back. She was surprised how much she'd forgotten the appeal of this town. Shops and businesses occupied historic buildings all around the marketplace. If shops were people, the elegant Georgian townhouses would be cool middle-aged women, austere and immaculate. The black and white timber-framed buildings were jolly old women, a little wonky but comfortable in their own skin. The Victorian buildings, in contrast, plucked design features from many different places, like canny fashion students. This seemingly sleepy Suffolk town was one of those places that appeared to have grown by accumulation rather than any form of planning. Ancient stonework supported masonry that was merely old. The overall effect was a space dotted with archways, back alleys and shadowy dead ends. A little way up one side street was the old church she vaguely remembered from childhood visits, and further along, the grand medieval castle that brought tourists to the town. Memories of all this came flooding back. What didn't come immediately flooding back was a memory of where Nana Lem's shop actually was. Memories were annoyingly impressionistic like that. The maps of childhood and nostalgia didn't come with conveniently labelled street names or door numbers. Penny's wanderings led her up by the side of a shop until she found herself in a courtyard area that ended with the open doorway of Framlingham Town Library. Instantly equating libraries with knowledge and information, she went inside to ask if they could direct her to Nana Lem's shop. Set in a grand two-storey building, Framlingham's library was one large open room with some other rooms off to the side. Penny barely remembered it from her childhood, but supposed she must have been in here before. Non-fiction was tucked in one of the side rooms. Grey shelving screened off and subdivided the adult reading section. Lower tubs of books were scattered around the children's section. And, above the reading chairs and study tables, there were colourful displays about favoured books and upcoming events. The older woman at the counter by the door had a slender figure and ash-blonde hair. "You look lost," she said. "You're absolutely right," said Penny. "I'm looking for a shop in the town. This is a library," she pointed out, and smiled to indicate she knew that Penny knew what it was. "A shop called Cozy Crafts." "Oh, you probably walked right past it to come here." "I feared as much." "After a fancy dress outfit?" No, I'm actually helping out. It's my Nana's place." "Lemmy?" The woman frowned. "I heard she was in the hospital." "Hence me. I do hope she's recovering well." "Know a lot about fancy dress, do you?" "I thought it was a sewing shop." "A bit of this, a bit of that." A man in a drab suit that made him appear older than his middling years approached, tapping away on a computer tablet. "Lorena, the book group selection in the back should have been sent back to Central last week," he announced. "I'm talking to a visitor, Roy." Only then did the man seem to notice Penny. He blinked like a lizard emerging from under its stone. "You can chit-chat to friends later." "A library visitor," replied Lorena the librarian. "Service users is the preferred nomenclature," said Roy. "I apologise," he added to Penny. "Do you?" Penny said coolly. She had no idea what the working relationship was between these two, but only one of them had interrupted a conversation and called her a service user. The librarian looked at him with equal coolness and said, "I will finish my conversation with Penny," said Penny. "Penny," continued the librarian Lorena. "And then I might possibly, maybe, take a look at the book group returns. Roy seemed entirely unhappy with this decision, but sniffed, looked at his tablet, and moved off. "Ignore Roy," said the librarian once he was gone. "It's a built-in hazard of having the library service area manager living only 2 streets away from the library, but it's my final week on the job and there's nothing he can do." "I see," said Penny. The shop?" "Cozy Crafts. Yes, you need to go back onto the marketplace. Turn left and it's there on your left, 3 doors along. If you reach Thumbskill's jigsaw shop, you've gone too far." I really hadn't noticed. Well, yes, unlike someone's house which is painted an illegally garish shade of pink. She cricked her head in the direction of the departing Roy. "Lemmy's shop doesn't really make its presence felt, but it's there, I assure you." "Thank you. Can you really have an illegal shade of pink?" "You can if it's a listed building," replied Lorena darkly. Penny thanked her again and moved to leave. "I might pop in later," Lorena called after her. "I need a costume for World Book Day." "Oh," said Penny, not sure if she wanted fresh custom before she'd even seen the shop. I'll look out for you." She left the library, followed the direction she'd been given, and as promised, there was the shop. The words "Cozy Crafts" were painted above the large bay window, but they had faded and peeled until the lettering was merely 1 shade lighter than the white woodwork behind it. She moved closer to the window and peered inside. It was a spacious shop and she could see display shelving, but from here she couldn't tell what it sold. The Georgian windows were large. It would be beautifully light and airy inside. She opened the door and a gentle chime jangled above her. Chapter 3. The floorboards of the shop, the shelves that lined the walls and the desk for the till were all made from the same dark wood. Penny ran her fingers along the ancient grain of a shelf and wondered whether this shop had an intriguing history. An antique sewing machine on a twirly iron stand was on display behind the window, and a large flat table stood in the centre of the room. Nobody stood at the till. In fact, it looked as if the shop was empty. A clattering noise announced the arrival of a woman descending the staircase opposite the till. She wore loose harem pants and a tie-dye t-shirt. This was Cousin Izzy. There was no mistaking Cousin Izzy. She had a round face, a friendly face made all the rounder by the shaggy bob haircut she wore. The friendliness was offset by the mild panic that hovered in her wide eyes. She always, Penny remembered, had a bit of the rabbit-in-headlights look about her, or, indeed, as Nana Lem had perhaps more accurately said, the look of a frog at the wheel of a tractor. "Hi, Izzy," said Penny. "It's me." "So it is," replied Izzy happily, giving no indication that she actually recognised Penny until she actually came forward and hugged her. "I knew you'd be coming." "Nana Lem tell you?" "Read my horoscopes." "Ah. Come now about for a bit," she suggested. Penny nodded. "Yes, apparently." She lifted her small suitcase. "Came as a bit of a surprise to me." "Well, you're here now. Cup of tea?" "Oh, that's a great idea. I've had a long journey." "Wonderful. Life is a long and mysterious journey with many turns." "Yes," said Penny slowly. "But I've also actually had an actually long journey to actually get here. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with but a single step." "Actually, the 8:15 from Liverpool Street." "And ends with a toddle up the stairs, 'cause that's where the kettle is." Following Izzy up the stairs, Penny paused for a moment and turned around to absorb what the shop looked like. The bones of the place were exquisite. Dark wood fittings, lots of natural light. From up here, though, she could see a good deal of dust, which wasn't a good look. There was something else that wasn't right, and it took Penny a moment to realise what it was. "Hey, Izzy, I'm confused about something. If this is a sewing shop, where's all the fabric and stuff?" Penny knew that there was a better word than stuff. She had a lot to learn. "Oh yeah, Lems and I had a chat about diversification. Do you know how much the markup is and some of the imported fancy dress stuff you can get?" Penny realised that Izzy was talking about Nana Lem. The nickname Lems made her sound as though she should be fronting a heavy metal band. "Yeah, I'll need to understand all that, I guess. Tell me if I'm wrong, though, but it's not just about markup, is it? Some of it must be about how much you can sell. I can't help seeing a lot of dust in here. What are the takings like?" "Takings, yeah. We can have a look," muttered Izzy. Penny followed her into the upstairs room, where there was indeed a kettle and a sink. It was next door to a room that had those amazing windows overlooking the square. Penny went over to look down. People hurried back and forth between most of the other shops, but very few spared a glance at the tired, faded facade of Cosy Crafts. "What's this space used for?" asked Penny, looking around. It was a jumble of boxes and fabric rolls, but there were several tables and sewing machines visible between the mess. "Lems used to run sewing courses in here back in the day. It's one of the places that needs a clear out, though." "One of the places," echoed Penny. It sounded ominous. Izzy handed her a mug of tea and grinned. "Yes, this place has 3 floors. Well, 4 if you count the cellar. Shop floor is the tidiest. Others need some work." Izzy's words had Penny heading straight upstairs to the top floor. Nana Lem had promised her the use of a flat. She urgently needed to understand how much work would be involved in creating a space where she could spend the night. The elegant wooden staircase went all the way to the top floor. Although the ceilings were not so high up here, Penny quickly discovered that there were 3 smaller rooms on the top floor. One was a replica of the workshop room below, piled up with similar amounts of mess. There was another room to the side with a sink and a small bathroom, and then a closed door at the furthest point. Penny pushed it open and came face with something. She wasn't entirely certain what it was she was looking at. It looked like a curtain that she might brush aside, but it wasn't. It was an impenetrable wall of stacked fabric that was taller than a person. "Hey, Izzy, this room up here, the one that looks like it's been filled with a bulldozer, is this where my bed is?" Izzy's head appeared at the top of the stairs. "Yes, you might need a bit of a tidy up." Penny gazed at the scale of the job. Izzy's words really didn't begin to do it justice. "It'll be fun to have a bit of a sort through," continued Izzy. She pulled out a cardboard box that had been wedged in at the bottom and then lifted a bolt of fabric from the mass of materials. "See here? Each one should have a label on the end that tells you what sort of fabric it is. Your education can start right way. This one here is cotton lawn." Penny shook her head. "Lawn? It's really fine woven cotton. Feel it, it's gorgeous." Izzy unravelled some fabric so that Penny could feel the drape and the weight on her hand. Right now, she didn't really care what was blocking access to her bed, as long as it wasn't there when she needed to sleep. She reached over with her other hand to stroke it. It was surprisingly pleasant. Ooh, it's lovely and light. Perfect for a summery blouse or dress, said Izzy, rolling it away again. I'll teach you the types of fabric, but the best thing for now is to just get a feel for them. Wools, cottons, linens, and silks are natural fibres. Most of the things that sound like science experiments are man-made fibres. Penny gently lifted a corner of fabric and held it against her cheek. Oh, it feels wonderful. We'll make a fabric addict out of you soon enough. Penny pulled out bolts of fabric and moved them to the workshop room on the top floor. As she uncovered random bits of useless clutter, she dropped them into a box at the top of the stairs. There were mysterious broken tools, tiny bits of haberdashery trim, and things that really belonged in the cupboard under the kitchen sink. The trouble with that was that she hadn't yet found a kitchen sink. Penny threw an ancient packet of rat poison into the box with a shake of her head. Mysterious foam objects called beauty forms went in the box with it, so that Penny could ask Izzy what they might be. Carrying rolls on the brief journey down the passageway gave her a chance to check out each fabric, opening out a few inches to examine the feel of it and to see what the pattern and weave looked like. Some had no weave at all, like the stuff that Izzy informed her was spelled Tulle, pronounced tool. There was the jangle of the shop door opening downstairs. Maybe you can sort out these fabrics and I'll see to the customer. Izzy gave her a concerned look. Do you know how to deal with customers? Penny grinned. More than 4 years' experience in the hotel trade, she said confidently. Yes, but that was working with Londoners. Penny picked up the box of dusty junk that was surely destined for the bin and hurried downstairs. Chapter 4. Hello again. It was Lorena, the soon-to-be-retired librarian. Oh, hi. Nice to see you. Penny smiled, both because she already liked Lorena based on their earlier chat, but also because her first customer was a familiar face. It was a day of new experiences, and she was grateful for any crumb of comfort that she belonged in this place. I said I might pop in. Penny put the box of junk down on the counter. You did. Hadn't expected you so soon. Well, I'm very interested in commissioning an outfit from you. For World Book Day, you said? Indeed. Lorena placed an old-fashioned handbag onto the counter, unclasped the top, and pulled out several sheets of paper. These should be helpful as a reference. I would like an Alice in Wonderland. Before Penny took the papers from her, she thought for a moment. Have you looked through the ready-made fancy dress outfits? I'm not sure if there might be an Alice in Wonderland one there. It could save you a lot of money. Lorena held up a hand. Let me underline the most important point of all with respect to this piece of work. I am constantly reminded that people have lost sight of the fact that World Book Day has the word book in its title. I find it very trying when we are besieged with Spider-Man and Elsa from Frozen costumes. I'm sure they appear in books of some sort, Penny hazarded. Literature originates in books. I'm not interested in novelizations, spin-offs, tie-ins, or any gross commercialization of the written word. I must absolutely insist that we avoid any Disneyfication. Ah, I see. The Alice in Wonderland that I wish to emulate is from John Tenniel's original illustrations of Lewis Carroll's books. I've bought some prints for that very reason. She laid out the pictures for Penny to see. Nice, said Penny, not certain what was expected of her. Full of period detail, as you can see. Penny nodded wisely, peering at the illustrations, which showed a much more thoughtful version of Alice than the Bambi-eyed Disney character. These illustrations are all in black and white. They are? What do you want to do about colour? Good question. The usual interpretations of pale blue with white and perhaps yellow would be most appropriate, I feel. It must be blue. It's my favourite colour. Penny went behind the counter to find something to write on. Let me capture some details from you so that we can create a quote. She realised she had absolutely no idea how much they would be charging for the dress. I'll need your contact details and, of course, the deadline you're looking at. Of course. Lorena jotted down her details. And I suppose I should get some measurements from you now, said Penny. I'll find a tape measure and we'll measure your chest, waist and back length. Bust, said Lorena. And your bust, yes. I mean, we would call it bust rather than chest because I am a woman, explained Lorena. Penny realised her mistake. Oh, gosh, yes, of course. Although Alice herself was a girl, no? Penny saw that Lorena was not paying attention. She was instead staring at the junk box Penny had placed on the counter. Well, this is most intriguing, she said as she walked over. Might I take a closer look? Sure. Lorena lifted out a small but elegantly long-necked bottle. It was made out of blue glass with gold trim. I like this, she said. We're just having a clear-out upstairs. Are you? Well, this would be really good as a drink-me bottle. Pardon? A drink-me bottle? For the Alice in Wonderland display we're making at the library. Oh, yes, I see that. She had only the sketchiest memories of the Alice in Wonderland story. There was, she knew, something about a girl shrinking and growing with everything she ate or drank. And a Mad Hatter. She wouldn't be telling Lorena that all those memories came from a certain Disney version of the tale. What she did say was, "You are welcome to take anything that interests you from that box, if you'd like to." "Thank you, Penny." Lorena held the bottle up to the light. "Perfect. So, pale blue cotton for the dress, perhaps?" said Penny, checking that she had captured all of the order details. "I think we might have some. One moment and I'll take a look." She went upstairs to check the fabric. Izzy had started stacking bolts of fabric along the landing wall. "Have we got a sort of pale blue fabric for making an Alice in Wonderland dress?" Penny asked. Without hesitation, Izzy reached in deep and pulled out a subtle fabric. "A nice blue seersucker?" she suggested. Seersucker? Isn't that some sort of crepe fabric? It's cotton, striped in slight crinkles. Looks smooth, but feels cold on the skin. Penny inspected it closer. It was a perfect pale blue. "This will do just fine," she said. "Great news," said Izzy. "If we use some fabric for this, we'll have the room cleared in no time." Penny thought that there must be a word for the blindness that Izzy had to the scale of the problem. In the same way that most human brains couldn't easily picture the difference between a million and a billion, Izzy was incapable of seeing that the task of creating a livable space from the chaos of the room as it currently stood was way beyond the trifling amount of fabric that would be needed for an Alice dress. Penny carried the fabric downstairs. "What do you think?" She placed it carefully on the large, flat table in the middle of the shop. She realised that this table was here to cut fabric, as she was able to lay the bolt down and unroll some of it for Lorena to inspect. "You have a very good eye." Thank you. "This is truly delightful. Nice quality vintage as well, by the looks of the label. Penny had to agree with Lorena. The label on the end did not look like anything that had been printed in the 21st century. She wondered how old the contents of Nana Lem's shop actually were. "And the quote?" said Lorena, as Penny hesitantly took her measurements. "I will need to consult with, my colleague." "Colleague," said Lorena archly, and Penny guessed Lorena knew she meant Izzy. "I tell you what, if you're free, pop over to the library at 5 this evening. We're having some pre-retirement drinks, me and my fellow librarians. I'll introduce you to some people." Penny thought that sounded perfectly pleasant. 5 o'clock, drinks at the library, quote. Penny nodded in agreement. As the door tinkled to signal Lorena's exit, Penny let loose a sigh of relief. She had managed to put on a convincing display of competence, even though she realised she was clearly out of her depth in the world of dressmaking.
Ba 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 ba.